want the best cameras, you get a Galaxy S24 Ultra. But there's still decent cameras. And on the Google Pixel Fold, Pixel 9 Fold Pro, God help me, I'm never going to get it right.
Too many words in all of these phone names now. Too many.
Everyone online was saying, I'm going to cancel my Netflix subscription if they bring in password sharing. And they saw a slight dip the moment they did it, and then a huge spike in users because everyone's like, actually, no, I can't give up Netflix.
Directly into the camera. I love Cobra Kai.
I took it in a Ziploc bag because I have no case for it.
Was it the same Ziploc bag you used to transport the Apple Vision Pro here in episode 1 of the podcast?
It's just so sad because there's no more Fitbit smartwatches.
I've been asking for a plastic $199 Apple Watch forever.
Welcome everyone to the 5th episode of the TechRadar podcast. My name is Josie Watson and I'm joined once again by Matt Evans.
Hello.
Hamish Hector.
Hello.
And Lance Ulanoff.
Hello.
This week, we'll be talking through all the new hardware we saw at the Made by Google event, including new Pixel phones, Pixel Buds, and Pixel watches, as well as looking towards the annual iPhone event, which we expect will be taking place next month in September. Using the example of Google's Gemini Advanced AI subscription, we'll also be asking if anyone cares enough about AI features to actually subscribe. But before we get to that, Hamish Hector is going to lead us once again with another fantastic segment of In Case You Missed It. Over to you, Hamish.
Thanks, Josie. Yes, the big news since our last show was the Made by Google launch event, which introduced 4 new Pixel 9 phones, the Pixel Watch 3 and the Pixel Buds Pro 2, plus a whole suite of new Gemini AI features like Gemini Live and Add Me for photos, so you no longer have to be left out of group snaps just because you're taking the picture. It wasn't all good news for Google, though, as it was declared a monopolist by a US federal judge, a designation which could see it dropped as the default search engine for platforms, or maybe having its business forcibly broken up. But don't expect to see any outcome soon, especially as an Apple exec said there's no price Microsoft could pay to make Bing the default on iPhone. Disney announced it's cracking down on free password sharing after the practice worked so well for Netflix, so starting in September, be ready to say goodbye to that plan you split with your friends and family. Finally, Gemini wasn't the only AI to get updates. Apple Intelligence made its first limited public appearance in an iOS 15 beta. Meta ditched its celebrity doppelgangers for an Instagram AI you can train to be a clone of yourself, and ChatGPT got an updated Model 2, though while OpenAI says it's better, it can't explain how. And that's what you need to know from the past month.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Hamish. Some interesting news there this month. I think for me, the one that sticks out the most is Disney+. I'm heartbroken.
Yeah.
Another day, another subscription price we must pay. Is anyone going to be trimming down their subscription list?
Yes, I have been a Netflix subscriber for the last 11 years, and I've cancelled my Netflix subscription as of this month. Something's got to go. And because Netflix kicked off the people who share our subscriptions, so like my in-laws and all that sort of thing, we decided it's not giving us enough value and it's time to pull the plug, which is gutting because I just started watching Scavenger's Reign and it is such good sci-fi. It's really good. So I'm now powering through before the 22nd. And
you got time. You got about a week.
Yeah.
That's not you got like work to do or anything.
I got a weekend. It's fine.
Yeah. What about yourself, Hamish?
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to it in this like sort of presentation, but it's kind of a shame about how basically Netflix, everyone online was saying, I'm going to cancel my Netflix subscription if they bring in password sharing. And they saw a slight dip the moment they did it, and then a huge spike in users because everyone's like, actually, no, I can't give up Netflix. And so I think that that's why Disney Plus and a bunch of these other platforms are doing the same thing, because it's proven to be, as much as everyone talks about how I'm going to leave the platform, it's these small price increases, these small inconveniences just have no impact. They make more money. And I mean, to a certain extent, that's maybe a good thing for the long run because Disney Plus is finally turning a profit. So the chance that it will just cease to exist has dropped in likelihood. But again, it's kind of rubbish that everyone's paying more for something that used to cost less.
Yeah. I think for me, it's interesting because you're right. The Netflix trend is that this does work for them financially. But in Matt's example and my own moving forwards as well, I don't know how sustainable it is because people, especially at the moment, can't afford all these subscriptions. Like for me, I'm kind of waiting till I finished a couple of shows that I started. There's one anime that just got renewed by Netflix after me waiting 15 years for the last season.
What is it?
it's so corny. It's called From Me to You. It's a romance that I watched when I was like 14, 15, and now it got brought back. It was great for me. But I'm sort of finishing up, sort of rewatching for the 17th or 18th time the entirety of the Marvel MCU movies on Disney. And then I'm going to have to make a cut. It's going to have to be one or the other.
Are you guys going to try subscription hopping, which is like the new in trend? So yeah, you'd be like, okay, cool. So Matt, for you, it's like, I don't know if you're a fan of Stranger Things, but if I was to ditch Netflix, I know the moment season 5's out, I'll be coming back to Netflix and whatever other series I'm into.
Yeah, I think so. At the moment, we're keeping Amazon Prime. Netflix is gone. We have picked up Crunchyroll, which has been great because we're diving right into all that anime and it's scratching that itch. Eventually, as you said, when some top tier stuff on Netflix comes out, like, as you said, Stranger Things, Cobra Kai, whatever else it might be. Yeah, Cobra Kai is incredibly cheesy, but I stand by it. Looking directly into the camera. I love Cobra Kai. So I would definitely try subscription hopping. What about yourself?
Yeah, same for me as well. I think it's interesting. It's only a matter of time before someone comes up with a platform that does it for you, which I think is even funnier. But
it's just cable TV.
Yeah, basically. I think for me, definitely, I'm sticking out with Disney Plus for a little while. My partner and I have been watching the entirety of Bleach, which, as if anyone who's watched Bleach knows, that takes an age. So we're trying to get through as much of that as possible, and then it's D-Day to decide which is going to drop. It's probably going to be Netflix I drop. Got a while till Stranger Things. It's the only real thing that I'm waiting for desperately from Netflix. Maybe they shouldn't have axed so many of their wonderful original shows. But alas, time will show, I think, that making this harder for consumers is not going to work for everyone.
Yeah.
They are just going to be even fiercer competition. But we'll see. The other interesting subject I wanted to pick up on was this Meta clone situation. Now, it was fairly throwaway in case you missed it, and I need a lot more information on this.
So yeah, you might remember from, like, I can't remember what Meta called this event, but it was, they showed off a bunch of new things, and one of these were the sort of doppelgangers of celebrities, but they weren't actually based on the celebrities. They had, I think the standout one was Snoop Dogg, but it was Snoop Dogg's likeness, but he was sort of this dungeon master character that.
Love that.
And they did several others. They had some people that would make jokes. I think one based on Kylie Jenner was like a fashionista style person. So it was loosely related to the celebrity, but they had a different name.
Right.
And basically those have been axed now. They're out the window. And now, yeah, they've introduced this sort of I was going to say cloning technology. But no, basically this sort of make your own AI type system. And one of the applications it suggested were for Instagram influencers. You could set up this AI to maybe act a bit like you, talk on your behalf, and it can do things like reply to your DMs. And it seems maybe interesting. Like, it's kind of I say interesting in the sense that it's different from what everyone else is doing, because I feel like that there's almost these three approaches with AI at the moment. Either you've got this sort of very much third-party assistant, which is sort of a little bit human-like, but not really based on anyone. Then, yeah, we've seen these sort of celebrity-based people where you can talk to someone like Einstein or whatever, or an AI pretending to be Einstein, obviously. And then you've got this final one where the AI is sort of pretending to be like you, but you're training it. And sort of, I guess there's that question of, which kind of AI would you like? Do you want an AI assistant that's complete neutral, or one that's like you, or somewhere in the middle? Really throwing it to the group.
I don't think there needs to be another me in the world, AI or otherwise. I think one's enough. No, I think one's enough, okay. Unless it's improved. In which case, actually, no, I still don't want it. Don't want it.
I feel deeply uncomfortable about using my likeness to train AI to talk and act like me, especially when you consider the impact of deepfakes and other things like that, and the potential implications of that information and that data that you're feeding it falling into the wrong hands, because Meta has never been one to shy away from a massive security breach.
Yeah.
And none of this sounds better than having Snoop Dogg as my dungeon master.
No. Well, it's interesting as well, because with those early chatbots they They were so sanitized. And I remember I was watching a YouTuber the other day. I can't remember. If I do, I will put in the description who it was. Did a really interesting breakdown. I think it might have been Jarvis Johnson, actually, now I think about it, about these chatbots and how people were using them if they worked. And they were talking about how one of them, their whole persona was that they would roast you, but it refused to roast you. Because the AI was trained to not be mean to people, because obviously they're trying to safeguard as much as they can. But it just begs the question, like, how can it represent who you are as a person if the dynamics of who you are as a person, the good, the bad, the whatever it may be, are so heavily sanitized? It's just going to be a load of chatbots that might look like you and might type like you, but they're not going to represent who you are if it's being fed through this very, very sanitized version. Not that I want them going around insulting anyone. I just don't see the point.
Yeah, because I guess the complete reverse of it, I didn't really include it in case you missed it, because it literally is happening right now as a recording, is the X AI Grok. It had some scandal because it's making AI images now, but it's using very copyrighted material. So one of our sister sites, Creative Block, their header image for this article was a picture of Pikachu in front of a Nintendo store holding some kind of assault rifle, which is, very much not what Nintendo or Game Freak would want. And also, clearly it's been trained on copyrighted material, and it's doing all these other images of Mickey Mouse and Mario and all these other characters. And so, yeah, that's a big question of, clearly that's gone the other way of not being very sanitized, and X will almost certainly see some backlash from that.
I mean, Nintendo's still trying to figure out how to solve the Pal World problem, which did something very similar to some of our favourite Pocket Monsters.
How that progresses. Maybe we'll have an update in the next podcast.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for running us through that.
No problem.
Up next, we're going to be talking all about Google. Arguably, the biggest news outside of the In Case You Missed It topics that Hamish covered has been Google's Made by Google event. Now, none of us have had the pleasure of trying out any of the new hardware yet, but Lance, you were out there for the event. You've had hands-on with all of the products, I think. Is that right?
Yep. I've touched them. I've tried them.
You also tried Google's protein balls. But before we get onto that, what about the products? So if we can just run through all of them with a little bit of pros and cons of each one, that'd be great. Starting with the Pixel 9 Pro Fold.
So the Pixel 9 Pro Fold is probably the most redesigned of all the products. I mean, if you ever saw the Pixel Fold, the original Pixel Fold from a year ago, it was an interesting product. Looked a little weird. Didn't look like the other Fold devices that had started to emerge. In particular, the Z Fold 5 that was out at the time had a weird aspect ratio. Well, the new one, really different. It's kind of got a normal aspect ratio. It's got the widest main cover screen. So it's a 6.3-inch display that looks like a normal phone. It is, when you open it up, you get an 8-inch display, and the device itself is just 5.1 millimeters thick. That is as thin as the Apple iPad Pro 13-inch. So it is really thin. I thought it's an excellent redesign. I was really happy with it. It finally lies flat, which the Pixel Fold did not. So everything about it is better. It obviously has a better chip. It has that bigger screen. Uh, I wish the cameras were better. I'm not a fan of the camera array. I think it's too much metal. I actually told some of the execs there that. But yeah, a really good redesign. And the other phones, the Pixel 9, that whole line got a redesign, and we now have a Pixel 9 Pro XL, I believe is the correct name. So we have this much larger device. I think that's actually a theme for Google, is that they've decided to offer people more variety across their devices. I'm sure Matt Evans will tell you all about the Pixel Watch, which finally has two different sizes. We have the 41 and the 45 millimeter, and the big, so you have a much bigger and much brighter screen. They didn't really redesign it in any way. It's just larger. And in fact, one thing, in touching the device, as much as I really thought, oh, this is a really nice looking smartwatch, their method of removing the band, to me, is my least favorite of all smartwatches. There's a little button next to the band. You have to press just right and pull it out. Still the same. They didn't change that at all. But they have a new chip inside. It's better. It's got all the Fitbit stuff going on in there, so that's pretty cool. And then the buds. You've got the Google Pixel Buds. I forget the proper name of them. I keep getting it wrong. I think it's the Buds Pro 2. They're smaller than ever. They fit nicely. I tried them out at the event, and I literally jumped around and tried to shake them out of my head as much as I could. Couldn't do it. I even got to try Gemini through them, which was pretty nice. I also got the sound quality, which was good. As much it has as much oomph as you could get from in-ear buds, and the sound quality is clear and sharp and rich and relatively full. I'm not an audiophile, but I thought this is good sound, and the noise canceling seemed quite good. I'm pretty immersive. That when you feel like a little disconnected from the world, that it's working really well, and so the pass-through worked well as well. So a nice lineup of devices. But I know we're going to be talking more about Gemini because I feel like ultimately for all of these products, the big story here is how Gemini works on any of them.
Yeah, we're going to come back to Gemini in a little bit for sure, because I think for me, that felt like the real standout of the whole presentation. But first, I was keen to chat with you a little bit more about the Fold first, because you just did our YouTube review for the Z Fold 6, which was a fantastic video. Everyone should go watch it. What would you say, how are they comparing for you at the moment, having had hands-on time, not a full review, obviously, with Google's new phone?
Well, I think that I was really pleased with Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6. I thought that they had similarly kind of made it sharper, more professional. I like this idea that everybody's moving in the direction of a foldable phone appearing, especially the sort of folds, not the flip style, but the fold style, where it appears more like a regular phone with a hidden secret, which is the large screen on the inside. And up until I would say yesterday when or this week when I touched the Google Pixel 9 Pro Fold, or Google Pixel 9 Pro Fold, is that right?
Too many words in all of these phone names now. Too many.
Too many words. I would have put the Z Fold 6 as the apex, the number one foldable. But one of the things that stood out for me about the Google Pixels, Google's folding phone, is that it has a cover screen that appears the same size as a standard cover screen. In fact, that 6.3-inch display is essentially the same display you get on the Pixel 9. It looks, and at a glance you might think it's the same phone, but there is a difference because there's curve on one side and square on the other. So you get that wider cover screen, and then because of that, when you open up the main screen, the flexible screen, it's 8 inches. That is larger than what you get on the Z Fold 6. So right now you have a bigger screen. Comparatively, when you look at the cameras, and I have not tested them yet, Z Fold 6 cameras are good. They're not the best cameras that Samsung offers. If you want the best cameras, you get a Galaxy S24 Ultra, but there's still decent cameras. And on the Google Pixel Fold, Pixel 9 Fold Pro, God help me, I'm never going to get it right, side, you have a 5x zoom. So that's actually a better zoom than what you get on the Z Fold 6. So that's one thing, but the megapixels seem good. The inside screen is interesting because the inside screen camera is interesting because it's 10 megapixels. If you open up a Z Fold 6, the camera on the inside is 4 megapixels. Mostly people use that inside camera though for like quick selfies or videos. So it's hard to say at this moment. There is something I was just writing about. It appears that on the Google's folding phone side, it does not support a stylus. For me, that's kind of important because I like to draw on the Fold. I think when you have this big screen, you could just open up, carrying it around, it's just like a regular phone. Open it up, it's like, well, it's a drawing tablet. So I expect to have the ability to draw on it. But on the Google Pixel 9 Pro Fold, not so much.
I guess Google don't make their own stylus though, do they? Because Samsung have the S Pen. Do Google have an equivalent? I don't believe so.
Well, no, but just to be clear, you can't just use a standard S Pen on the Z Fold 6. You have to use one that is made for a fold. If you were to use the one from the S24 Ultra, it would damage the screen. So you are correct. Google is not making any stylus, but I do not believe they support a digitizing stylus. I know they don't at all. And the reason that's important is that a digitizing stylus will recognize pressure, tilt, and palm rejection. So you could, your hand could even rest on the screen while you're
I'm fairly
drawing.
certain, actually, as well. Samsung did like a pretty impressive collaboration with Wacom, which does a lot of drawing tablets and graphic design products. So their pen technology is already at a pretty advanced level because of that collaboration. It'd be pretty hard for Google to catch up at this point.
Yeah. Well, Samsung, I spoke to Samsung a couple of years about this topic and the difficulty of integrating a digitizing panel inside a folding display, and how they had to finally figure out that this thin sheet of copper that isn't going to offer flexibility would have to be broken into two pieces and put on either side of the display. So it's not an easy thing to do, and it may have been something that Google just said, maybe not this time.
It's fair enough. It's a pretty big advancement, but I'm interested actually to hear a bit from Hamish about your perspective on this phone, given that you, in the last episode, became our fierce foldable defender and you've since tried Samsung's latest foldable. What's your take on the new the new foldable from Google?
Yeah, so I tried out the Google Pixel. No, getting it wrong instantly. I tried out the
We all need
Samsung
about 3 hours more
Z
sleep.
Fold 6. So many words. Yeah, I tried that out for about like 2.5 weeks. Fantastic phone. I wrote a feature about it. Basically, for me, it's my first time actually properly using a foldable, and it was this huge evolution on using a smartphone. And I think it might be easily the top 3, maybe even just the best gadget I've used. Maybe I've tried things that are cooler, but because I use my phone all the time, these like upgrades that the folding screen offers, the fact, it's a bigger screen for reading comic books or watching video, or even just you can half fold it, so sort of have it as like a stand, so you can see the video on one screen and sort of movie controls on the bottom, and just all these other things. Again, you don't always have to open it. You can just have it on the front display, or because Lance talked about how these selfie cameras aren't necessarily the best on foldables, but because you can open it up, you can have like the 50 megapixel sensor looking at you to take a selfie, which is very, very good. So that was fantastic. And then the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, get it right this time,
Nailed it.
is interesting as well, because as Lance said, it's a full-on pixel size screen when it's not open. When it's open, it seems to be effectively 2 pixel screens next to each other, maybe a little bit smaller, which from that perspective, bigger, probably going to be better for, reading comic books is the main thing I used my the Fold 6 for. And then the only thing that does worry me slightly is obviously a little bit cheaper, which is good, but the fact that this is only IPX8 rated, whereas the Samsung was IP48 rated. So the number there being the 4 and the X, which is dust resistance. So Google's saying, we're not promising anything on dust. At least Samsung was promising anything bigger than 1 millimeter will be kept out, which is still not great when you're spending like $1,800, $1,900 on the base model. One trip to the beach can ruin it. I still am very impressed, Lance. You tried?
I did it.
Did you have a case on, or did you go raw?
No. So I watched the Olympics.
I read this. It was so funny.
Yeah, I had a really good time, but I wanted to see. I didn't want to miss the gold zone. I was so hooked on it. So, and I thought, what better way to do it? But when I took it in a Ziploc bag because I have no case for it. So I took it in a Ziploc bag, but then I would take it out of the Ziploc and I would sit there just like a foot above the sand, and with it open. And I, didn't touch the sand while I was using it. I didn't, drop it. And I knew that that was a risk, but I was determined. And, I would say that, one, I was impressed that I managed, it survived, no problems. Two, I was impressed because that screen is really bright. And even with sunglasses on, I was able to watch the Olympics, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Out of interest, was it the same Ziploc bag you used to transport the Apple Vision Pro here in episode 1 of the podcast? Or was it a different Ziploc bag?
Let me tell you something. I am kind of a Ziploc aficionado. I have traveled. I have so many different size Ziplocs, and I literally am. Once again today, I have some project I'm doing. I needed to transport something important. I threw what I needed to into what's called a snack bag Ziploc. All right, so I know about every different size of Ziploc. And the one that I brought for the Vision Pro, I think that was a gallon size. So yes, if you have a question, forget tech. If you have a question about Ziplocs, I'm your guy.
You heard it here first, folks. Ziploc radar coming to you next fall.
We make sure to add to our best phone
that's
cases.
A good keyword.
Add to our best phone cases buying guide, Lance's Ziploc bags. I want to move on to talk a little bit about the Pixel 9 base model as well, the non-foldable phone that's just released. Now, our readers were having some feelings about this, saying it basically just feels like the Pixel 8.5 with an added option of a AI subscription. Lance, do you think there's enough to differentiate the models?
I mean, the design is quite different. It really is. It's a shift away from what they had before. And I know there's some question, so we have the new G4, the Tensor G4 chip inside. And for me, this is a big question mark because that's where maybe you can really differentiate on the just general performance. Google has lagged behind, I think, because of what they don't base their Tensor chips on the fastest silicon that's out there. And so they've never really approached what Qualcomm does with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 and, of course, Apple's A17 Pro. So I'm a little concerned because even as I sat there at the event, they didn't show any performance information at all. They didn't show any comparison. I think the only time they really went directly after Apple was on a night shot comparison where they were kind of like, look at us, and Apple's not so good, but that was it. And so that's concerning because if you are outperforming or at least on par with your competitor, it's usually this is a moment where you would show that off. So that's a worrisome thing. And they didn't go into the specs on the cameras in any real detail. It was really a focus on. Ultimately, it became a focus on what the software could do to enhance all these different things you're going to do with your camera. So we always get asked that question, should you upgrade? Now, it's way too early. We have not reviewed these products, but there is some concern there because maybe there isn't enough here to say, you should upgrade. I just don't know yet.
Well, keep an eye out for our hands-on review that's going to go up on TechRadar of the Pixel 9 when it comes out. Hopefully, we'll have an answer to that question. Matt, I also want to talk with you very briefly about the Watch 3 as well. I know you've got some thoughts and feelings about the Fitbit features and also the hardware side of Fitbit that's unfortunately no longer with us. Can you talk through a little bit how you're feeling?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, excuse me. I'm going to cough.
Oh, he's very emotional.
It's just so sad because there's no more Fitbit smartwatches. So there are no more Fitbit smartwatches. There are no more Fitbit Sense. There are no more Fitbit Versas. The Google Pixel Watch 3 and its eventual sequels are the only Fitbit smartwatches going forward. Fitbit will be strictly reduced to trackers like the Charge, the Lux, the Inspire, all that kind of sphere. But this wasn't a presentation about Fitbit, really. This was a presentation about the new Google Pixel Watch 3 hardware. And it is a straight upgrade in almost all senses. Lance alluded to it earlier. There are now two choices where there were one. You can have either a smaller 41mm version or a bigger 45mm version. So that's a 40% bigger screen when you account for the thinner bezels. Even the smaller 41mm version is a 10% bigger screen. So just like the Pixel 9 Fold and the Pixel 9, they're advertising more choice, bigger, better, and there's loads more going on under the hood. It's not got a Google Tensor chip, but it does have lots of advanced running metrics. So a bigger watch with an advanced running metrics and more power behind it is great because that means that I am much more likely to pick up a Google Pixel Watch because that seems tailor-made for me. There are some concerns. It does have Google was advertising a 35% bigger battery for the larger model, but it still only reaches 24 hours because that accounts for the bigger screen with more power and more brightness.
Right.
It's up to 2,000 nits now. So even though they were advertising this battery is 35% bigger, you don't get any more life out of it.
Which is very disappointing because that's kind of the direction that everyone is saying that these watches need to go in, right? Is more battery life that actually lasts for longer.
Yes.
Not just to keep up with all the new stuff you're shoving in there.
I have been begging Apple and Samsung and Google and everybody to try and come up with a watch that can reach the kind of heights that a fitness-orientated watch like Garmin or Polar or Coros can do, which lasts for, like the smaller Fitbits last for a week. The Samsung Galaxy Ring lasts for a week. The Coros Pace 3, which is one of our best running watches, lasts for 24 days. I understand that these smartwatches are doing a lot more and outputting a lot more power. The OnePlus Watch 2 can reach 100 hours in smartwatch mode, which is great. It does that via dual chipsets. You guys aren't the only people who are stumbling over their words today.
Something in the air.
But yeah, it's still running Wear OS. So I would love another Wear OS or a Watch OS or, anything like this, last longer, please, because they want us to track our sleep, and we can't track our sleep if we're charging it every night.
Even if it got to like 30 hours, that would be a big improvement because then you could actually safely wear it overnight and then charge it at some point the following day.
I mean, the saving grace, and Lance will attest to this because he was there, is the fast charge. Is that it now charges up a lot faster, so you can whack it on a charger, and it's ready to go by the time you go to bed within the space of an hour fully charged. But if you're charging it when you go to bed and when you wake up, chances are you're going to run out the door and you're going to be left for half of the day with a dead piece of plastic.
I mean, if I have to frequently charge something, I'm just more and more likely to forget it as well. It has to be attached to me at all times for me not to forget it. I genuinely am the perfect example of if my head wasn't screwed on, it would not be with me.
I think that's the problem with ultimately, even the technology which lasts longer. If you're wearing an Oura ring, right, it lasts 3 days, if you're lucky. And I'm not wearing mine today because, I traveled a little bit. I was like, it told me, oh, don't forget to charge it if you want to have it before bed. Well, I put it on the charger. I went to sleep, forgot about it, got up, forgot about it. And now I'm here without it. It's almost like devices need something else that you can attach to your body that can like vibrate or something when you're getting too far away from it. Or maybe that should be part of the app on the phone that says, oh, you're not wearing your device, and go put it on, because nothing tells me to do it.
I quite like Apple's Find My feature for that, like the you've left this behind. That has genuinely made me go back to get products that I have left behind.
The problem is then when the thing that reminds you you've left the thing behind needs to be charged. And then you not only forget the thing, you forget the thing that needs to remind you as well.
It's like daisy chaining tech devices in the hope that somewhere along the chain there's something so quintessential that we won't leave behind, which is probably our phones, really, isn't it?
True. It's not always perfect either, because you'll have my wife often has a notification saying she's left her AirPods behind when it's in the bottom of her bag in the footrest of the car that we're driving away from the venue. So there's this sudden panic, and to find out it's still in the car. So it's whether that's a problem with her phone, I'm not sure, or her particular pair of AirPods. But you can't. It's not always perfect, but it's a useful reminder.
Despite all of this new hardware, the real star of the show, as we alluded to earlier, was Gemini. But it's not necessarily been something everyone's super excited about, largely because a lot of things are relating to subscriptions. Now, subscriptions this year has really been the year of subscription trauma, whether it's to do with entertainment platforms, whether it's to do with your video doorbell, and now also AI features on our phones. Lance, what's your sort of, having actually tried and seen some of these things, do you think there is a value proposition, and what might consumers need to know about this before choosing to buy a phone?
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is consumers are going to be pretty frustrated because they're seeing the pitch, right? They're seeing the advertisements for all these cool features. And when they discover that some of them don't function because they didn't pay extra, I think they're going to be annoyed. Like, oh, you need a Gemini Advanced subscription to use these really incredible Gemini Live features. That is going to be, I think that's going to be a letdown for people, because especially if they get a chance to try them out, they're going to be impressed. I used Gemini Live, and it's funny because they didn't even do exactly what I did during my day. When the on-stage demo was pretty straightforward, and I think part of that had to do with they'd run into some tech glitches. They had like literal fails during the event, which we catched. Watch our TikToks, you'll see them. But when they did the Gemini Live, which is conversational, they never interrupted it. So when I did my test, I purposely interrupted it because I was told it could do that. And honestly, it succeeded every time. It was just it would just stop. There was you would see as you interrupt it during a conversation, its voice gets low and then it stops and then suddenly it comes back and it's already taken in what you said and it's pivoted to the new direction of the conversation. So that's really impressive. And it's really unfortunate that we're not going to get, like, some people will not try it because they have to pay for it. I think all these companies have just woken up to the fact that this is the best way to make money, is just charge people up front and not do what the original internet did and give everything away for free, and then realize later on, oh, I better come up with a sort of a revenue model. But it's a tough pill to swallow for consumers. And the other thing I would say is, there are some features which should come free, which should work out of the box. My favorite feature that I tried was Add Me, which is really an unusual. You wouldn't even think it's something that people would want until you try it and you realize, oh, this is kind of life changing in some ways, because I've taken a lot of different group photos, with friends and stuff, and there's always that conversation, right? Oh, who's going to take it? Oh, but you have to be in the photo. Oh, well, wait. Oh, all right. Well, you know what? We'll do two photos. You be in it, and then somebody else go out and they'll take it. Well, forget that. This whole thing is just somebody stands there, takes a photo, kind of lines it up, and then they have this AR version of the people that were there before, and they don't even have to stay there. And then you go in and they take a second photo and you're part of it. Now you're part of the group photo. And it doesn't look bad. It doesn't look weird. It doesn't look like somebody copied and pasted you in. It looks like you were there in the first place. That's a pretty big deal. And so, my overarching thought about Google Gemini is that what Google is really doing, when you look at all the different features that they've added, is it's about utility. It's not about weirdness. It's not about, oh, I made a very oddball picture. Now, you can do that stuff. But most of what they're focusing on is incredible levels of utility through AI. And because of Google's power and connection to its own sort of back end of search information and knowledge graph, this is going to be a big deal going forward. And it may be the way, in fact, that Google wins this big AI race, because it has access to information and data at a level and scale that no one else has.
Which, it kind of makes sense as well, right? Like, this is a service being provided. It's a live service. It's not a one-time product. It's something that updates, it upgrades. I do understand all of that. But it's like you say, there are some things in there that are just such nice to haves and not necessarily something that's going to keep shifting and evolving. And it doesn't feel necessary to ring fence something that is just cool and you can enjoy it, especially when it really does demonstrate how powerful their software is becoming. I'm keen, though, to hear from the rest of the couch as well what everyone's favourite Gemini feature we saw was, because there was quite a lot of different things.
Yeah, I mean, sort of repeating what Lance said, I thought the coolest one was the Add Me. Just seeing it from the demo that they did was very impressive, even to a lesser extent, not even like a group photo. Sometimes it'd be like, oh, I want to take just a picture of my girlfriend, and there's a really nice background, but if you take a selfie, you can't really see it. So I'll just take a picture of her. And there's so many pictures from holidays where there's just pictures of my girlfriend in front of something nice, and it would be nice if there could be a picture of both of us in front of something nice, this cool museum or cathedral or something we visited. So that would be really cool. And then but also a lot of the other stuff. I mean, I'd quite maybe need to try Gemini Live, because that sort of thing, it seems interesting, but I can't see myself really using it that much. I mean, but also, I'm not really someone that uses a chatbot AI very frequently anyway, so maybe if I was, that would matter more. Maybe the other thing was where this was the demo that failed twice, but the third time was the charm, where they took a picture of the Sabrina Carpenter tour date, and then it was able to match up with his calendar. The sort of the multi-app sort of coordination seems really cool, because Apple talks a bit about that, but that's not coming for a while. So the fact that sort of Google seems to be getting out the door a bit quicker could be really helpful for them.
What about yourself, Matt? Did you have a favourite?
Yeah, there's lots of cool demonstrations. But something that really piqued my interest was, especially doing what we do as journalists, was the research applications of Gemini. I think the example that Google gave was starting up a coffee shop, and Gemini thought, and it asked a few pertinent questions, and Gemini thought for a moment, and it compiled a Google Doc of relevant information. And I figured, as a journalist, that's a great way for AI to make our jobs easier while still allowing us, the human element of that, to come in and parse that information and sort the wheat from the chaff and come out with the things that we need to do our jobs better. It doesn't necessarily have to, there was a lot, when AI first became a buzzword a couple of years ago, there was a lot of fears, especially around the way it treats artists and writers and voice actors and media especially. And that is a great example of a way AI can be beneficial while still having the human element in that chain.
Yeah, because at the moment, I think a lot of the applications I see are things that I think, oh, that would be great for work.
Yeah, for
that
sure.
would be amazing for this person's job. That would be great for this person's function. I think to some degree, parenting as well, like the demo we saw where they were talking about science experiments. I thought that was really cool. And I can see how coming up with ideas for family would be great. But generally speaking, everything I think of is like, I can see my mum using that for her job, or I can see my partner using that for his job. And this sort of idea of making it a consumer proposition is a bit odd to me.
Yeah, I can understand that. When I was lucky enough to go to the Paris Olympics, and there was loads of business to business or AI applications, from designing stadiums to the way clips were being auto-generated by the level of noise from the crowd, like the clapping and the cheering and the whooping. The camera would know to focus on that and crib that for the highlights, which is a fascinating implication of AI. And I think some of the ways we're going to interact with AI, most of the ways we're going to interact with AI, we as consumers aren't necessarily going to see, because it's all going to be done behind the scenes.
And that's the stuff that's most exciting,
yeah,
really.
it is. But excluding the stuff from work, what was yours? What was your takeaway?
Yeah, my favourite one was probably the screenshots. I know that's a really lame one to pick, probably, but I screenshot a bajillion things. I think, Lance, you did a TikTok for us talking about this as well, and you had a similar thing. I screenshot everything all the time. My phone is littered with them. It's a problem. My Apple iCloud subscription is just going to keep going up. But the ability to quickly pass through different screenshots I've got, or find information from a screenshot. You can kind of do that with Apple's photo search function and with other phones' photo search functions, but not in the same way where you get this really concise rundown of what it is. And then, like we were talking about with Gemini Live, the ability to potentially action that information or find that information, find a Wi-Fi password you print screened ages ago. That is so useful. And it's those minutes saved from everyday life that add up to hours over time, which I'm all about.
And then on this sort of topic of AI, you might remember I mentioned, in case you missed it, about OpenAI have released this update for ChatGPT.
Yes.
Specifically, it's the GPT-4o model. And it's about how it's better. They've said it's improved it's improved stability and just general performance. But they themselves admit they cannot quantify how it is better. And
It's good.
Basically that. Because it's one of these interesting things where they mention in their own post saying, normally when an AI update comes out, particularly like we've just seen with Gemini, you have these big standout features that are being added. But what if you are just making it slightly more reliable at providing answers? How do you quantify that? And even how do you measure that? Because I've been thinking a bit about it, and you go, okay, well, do you do it every time the AI says it doesn't have an answer? And then you think, well, sometimes it's saying it doesn't have an answer could be the correct response. Or, do you do it every time it provides some kind of reliable answer and the user says, yep, that's mostly good?
Yeah.
And you go, well, sometimes the AI just gets little bits of its thing wrong. So a user might say, oh, yeah, that's correct. And actually, no, it got some small but important detail incorrect. And so, yeah, I think long term, especially if people are paying for these services to use them, there's got to be a way that you feel like you're getting your money's worth, knowing it's getting improved beyond just it's got this cool new feature. Because at some point, they're not going to have a cool new feature to roll out every month or every few months.
It's interesting because 4.0 is the model that Apple's going to be using for the Apple Intelligence
That's their
connection, right?
top model at the moment.
So it's interesting that they've sort of done this announcement. Obviously, we're going to talk in a moment a bit about the Apple event that's we assume is coming up in September. Do you think it's related to that at all? Is it just they kind of needed to push out hey, we're still here? Or is there perhaps more to this quantification thing that we're just being not told?
I think they are doing it to keep in that conversation for sure. I mean, Gemini's just done some big announcements, not just at Google, but last month at the Samsung event. Obviously, yeah, we've got Apple Intelligence probably coming up in September. So I think there is that need to keep ChatGPT in the conversation because it's, Gemini is on your phone and that's going to be very in people's face. Same with Apple Intelligence. So ChatGPT sort of lead could very quickly fall, completely lose that because it's just not in front of you as much anymore. And so I think that's probably part of it. But yeah, I think it's not just for ChatGPT. This quantification of AI improvements is going to be something that everyone's going to have to try and solve. Because it could even be like, oh, it's trained on this much new data, but how does that actually affect the responses it gives? Was that data actually any good for particularly what you want to use it for? And yeah, as AI starts to cost more and more money for the user, because it costs the businesses money to run the AI, so at some point, we're going to have to pay for it, unfortunately. How does that all work?
It's an interesting one. And Gemini really came out swinging at this event and, like you say, at the Samsung event as well. They're going to have to keep up the momentum. And, we're going to be talking a bit about Apple. And I think Apple's going to have a similar problem when it's talking about Apple Intelligence is this momentum is slowing down. People are getting burnt out by the subject. So we'll see. Lance, we're about to lose you, aren't we? Do we have time to get a quick Apple prediction from you, or have you got to go now?
I have to go, but I'm just gonna give you the very quickest prediction about Apple, which, by the way, everyone believes is going to be September 10th. That's the belief of when the launch is going to be. And of course, it's the iPhone 16. We fully expect that every version of the iPhone 16, from the standard to the Pro and the Pro Max, will support Apple Intelligence, which means chip upgrades for everybody. So that's fully expected. But we don't think it's going to be the super thin phone. That's not coming. I don't think that this is going to be a sea change year. I mean, I just am not getting that feeling at all. And I think Apple will really lean into Apple Intelligence and showing us the things that we can do, immediately, and the things that we'll get to do as the year progresses with all of these devices. So, some sort of Apple Watch update. I'm most excited about the idea of a cheap, plastic one for kids. Like, oh, heck, it doesn't have to be for kids. I've been asking for a plastic $199 Apple Watch forever. If we get that, my head might just explode. So that's kind of my quick predictions. And now I will depart. Goodbye, guys. I'll see you later.
All right.
Catch you
See
later,
ya.
Lance. So obviously we've lost Lance now. Rest in Pisces. However, I'm interested to hear what both of your favourite rumours or best hopes are for the Apple event, which, as we say, we expect will be happening in September.
Matt, you go first.
Sure.
I've
okay.
really got nothing to say.
There have been loads of patent stories swirling around the internet about an Apple Ring.
Yes.
I will be very surprised if it arrives this year, if at all. I just don't think. I think the technology is too new. The form factor is too new, and Apple always swoop in at the end and do it better rather than be a pioneer. They let everybody else make the mistakes first. So I am 99.9% sure, and I'm leaving the little gap there for clarity and, just in case I am wrong, that we get a hint of an Apple Ring this year. I just don't think it's going to happen. I agree with Lance in that I think we're going to get another SE or a cheaper smartwatch this year, possibly for kids, like Lance mentioned, but generally I think it's just going to be a cheaper model overall. These things tend to go in cycles. We've had 2 years ago, we had the Apple Watch SE2,
Yep.
and so I think the time is right for an Apple Watch SE3 with older parts, but still cheap, older parts than the Apple Watch Series 10 or X or whatever it ends up being that's going to come out this year. And yes, I have to do the X. But I do think that it's going to have like the sort of parts that the Series 8 had when it came out a couple of years ago. And that's how they make these things cheaper. There's like a couple of other corners they cut. Like previously, we've had nylon backings rather than stainless steel. Lance seems to think it's going to be plastic, and that may well be the case, especially if they're gearing it up for kids. I know Fitbit came out with the Fitbit Ace LTE this year, which was another plastic kiddie watch. So perhaps the time is ripe for kids, 9 and older to embrace smartwatches. That's kind of the hellscape that we're living in now.
Yeah, we're there.
But those are my predictions. I think SE3, possibly Ultra 3, although maybe less likely, and almost certainly not an Apple Ring.
No, I would be very surprised about an Apple Ring as well, to be honest. I think their focus is very much on Apple Intelligence right now, too.
Yeah.
I mean, even looking at what Lance was saying there about some of the iPhone predictions that he's got, I just don't think that hardware is really where they want to be right this second, especially while they've still got the Vision Pro to figure out, make interesting for consumers. It's probably not coming. The small watch is interesting. The kids' watch, potentially, rather, is interesting. I said on a team call recently, like, I remember when they were giving out pedometers in cereal boxes in the UK many years ago, and even that caused some furore among people saying, well, do we actually need to be tracking children's activity? But I suppose from a locating them standpoint, maybe it stops them from getting phones earlier.
Not just the location standpoint, it's that now the Fitbit Ace LTE version has contactless payment enabled, which is terrifying for kids that are, 11, 12, 13, what have you. To be fair, if they're getting smartphones that age anyway, the same technology is enabled on there, but I don't know. Somehow when it's
I don't even use it on my watch.
Yeah.
I know that it's just it's a gateway drug.
Somehow when it's cyborgized, it seems slightly more sinister.
I know what you mean.
What about yourselves? What are you guys predicting or looking forward to?
I was looking forward to the idea of an iPhone Air, but now it seems like that has been fairly widely debunked, at the very least for this year. As I've discussed in previous podcasts, if anything, I'm kind of looking at moving away from an iPhone, especially given that, I got the iPhone 15 Pro Max. No, not Max. I can't even remember what phone I have. That's quite depressing, isn't it? That says a lot.
Too many suffixes.
There's too many suffixes. I can't remember.
That's an iPhone 4.
It is maybe phone. And I like it. And I think, it's kind of cool that the action... Hamish is still going over here. I like that the action button on this one, I like that that's potentially rumoured to come in the mainline iPhone flagship. But I'm kind of just waiting to see what happens with Apple Intelligence, to be honest. That's all I'm really interested in when it comes to iPhone at the moment, personally. What about you, Hamish?
Yeah, well, I'm not really an Apple user. So it's hard for me to really care about their stuff. I enjoy watching their presentations. I think Apple do very good presentations. But
Because they're not live.
because they're not live, I think they just have a cadence of delivering information is very good. And so it's exciting from that perspective. But it's hard for me to engage with products that I know I will just not buy. And I think that also from my perspective, obviously, I really like VR. And so the potential of that is just astronomically low. I think, the Apple Vision Pro isn't even out in every region yet. So the idea that they'd introduce some kind of new one, not very likely to happen. There are rumors they're meant to be working on a cheaper version, but again, those suggest, initially they said 2025. I think I've seen 2026, maybe even 2027. I think there may even just be an element that Apple doesn't even really know what to do with the Vision Pro. And so for me, I'm sure the event will be interesting, but I'm not really looking forward to or not looking forward to anything because I'm just sort of flat and neutral on it.
Fair enough.
They could announce the iPhone 21 for all I mind. Just skip ahead. They've already done it once. They could skip a few numbers again.
Do you think there are any Apple Intelligence Vision Pro implications that you're particularly keen on?
Maybe, but again, there's maybe beyond the idea of, I think Apple Intelligence, there's kind of the same like we saw with Google, that it's cross-app is very interesting. But again, I don't know if that would revolutionize the Vision Pro to a certain extent, because I think that it's even a year, oh, not even a year, but, even many, many months into its existence, it's hard to really work out where it exists.
Yeah.
Because it's got the power of a laptop, but you can't really do laptop things with it unless you have a MacBook anyway. And so you're looking at sort of a $5,000 at least setup, which is a lot to sell to people. So maybe that Apple Intelligence could try and win a few people back. But I think even if they did something bonkers wild with their Apple Intelligence, I just don't think it's going to have a huge impact.
I want to see the, like in Halo, where Cortana comes up in your visor and she's like her own little 3D model. Well, she's a whole person, basically. I kind of want that for Siri. I want to know what they envision Siri to be like and want to be able to pop up.
Maybe that
in the
would
Vision
work.
Pro.
Maybe I will concede that maybe a little Cortana. They just steal the idea from Microsoft wholesale.
Yeah.
Put that in the Vision Pro. Maybe that would work.
I think for now that is all we have time for in this week's episode. So thank you both for joining, as always. Lance has already gone, but thanks for joining when you were here, Lance. He's with us in spirit, always. In the next month's episode, I imagine we are going to be talking about whatever we see at Apple's showcase. So make sure to tune in if you are intrigued, as we are, about what Apple has to show. Or rather, as me and Matt are. Hamish isn't really interested, apparently. In the meantime, make sure to keep an eye on our YouTube channel, subscribe below, and look out for all of our hands-on reviews with Google's latest hardware. Thanks for watching.
See you guys.
Bye.
I didn't actually say bye. Bye.